Mr. Speaker, it's always a pleasure to rise on behalf of the people from Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola, but today is a particular pleasure, a distinct pleasure, because today I believe I rise on behalf of all Canadians to report on an epidemic, something that touches all Canadians, and that is intimate partner violence. This is a non-partisan issue, Madam Speaker, and in drafting this bill, I deliberately made it as non-partisan as possible. I know sometimes things do get quite partisan in the House, but this bill, in my view, and I say this with the greatest of sincerity, is a non-partisan bill to address the epidemic of intimate partner violence. I know that I've spoken with a number of stakeholders, a number of people who've experienced intimate partner violence. I've received those notes, and to anybody who's watching today, anybody who's listening today, please know we hear your heartfelt words. When a victim literally pours out their heart to you in a note saying, I was a victim of intimate partner violence and I feel heard through this bill, it's my view that we should heed these words and pass this bill expeditiously. I know that watching online today is the family of Bailey McCourt. For those who are unaware, Bailey was a young woman, a mother, a survivor of intimate partner violence. This summer, her former partner was convicted of abusing Bailey. Within hours, he left the courtroom and murdered her. That allegation is before the court. Along with her was one of her friends, a relatively new friend, who survived. Bailey's family reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and they asked that this law be known as Bailey's Law. Oftentimes, as politicians, we will sometimes attach a name to a law. I didn't feel it was my place to do that, but when a victim's family reaches out to you and asks that this be done, that is not something we should easily ignore. I know Bailey's Aunt Debbie is watching today, being the spokesperson for the McCourt family. I also had the opportunity to meet with her father, Shane, stepmom, Trish, this past week during the break week. And I hope I'm not paraphrasing inappropriately, but they provided unequivocal support for this bill. So people are watching, Canadians are watching, victims are watching, women's organizations are watching. I've received countless emails, correspondence, feedback from women's organizations. Why? Because what this bill does is it creates the distinct offense of assault intimate partner. Right now, assault in the criminal code does not distinguish between who you assault. The only distinguishment is actually if you assault a peace officer. So we distinguish between assaulting a peace officer and assaulting somebody in the general public, but we don't distinguish between punching somebody out at the bar and punching out your intimate partner. Two very different things. One is a relationship predicated on trust, intimacy, sometimes dependence, as in financial dependence, the commingling of assets. The other happens randomly. When it comes to intimate partners, they're the most likely to experience a homicide. And yet we as this House have stood idle, despite time after time after time this being brought up in the House. The second thing that this bill does is it creates the sentence or creates a charge of first-degree murder when somebody kills their intimate partner. Right now, first-degree murder is colloquially when someone in the United States they call premeditated. In Canada, we call it planned and deliberate. The other aspect of first-degree murder, one can be found guilty of first-degree murder when they commit a predicate offense, as in they kidnap somebody. And then the third is killing of a peace officer. This bill will make a fourth category. killing of an intimate partner. We have to deter this conduct, we have to denounce this conduct, and more concretely, this House has to speak out about the killing of intimate partners with a loud voice. And this bill will do that. Thirdly, this bill creates a risk assessment. Right now, generally, the only mechanism to bring somebody before the court who's accused of intimate partner violence is when they breach their conditions. Well, somebody may be escalating. An accused person may be escalating to the point where they are a risk to their intimate partner without having breached their conditions. This bill would allow a judge to compel a person to court for up to a 7-day risk assessment so that we can intercede before there's another victim. 7 days, in the grand scheme of it, I understand it's a deprivation of liberty, but compared to the number of victims we are seeing, we have to intervene. This would permit a court to independently, at the request of a victim or the prosecutor or the court's own volition, say, we are concerned about the safety of this victim, and we're going to make a determination of whether this victim remains safe or will be safe pending the trial, even if the person has been granted bail. Fourth, this bill updates the law of detention. This is something that most people don't know much about. Section 490 of the Criminal Code, which was written, well, I think it was probably written 30, 40 years ago when people went to trial within 3 to 6 months. Right now, a police officer has to go to court every 3 months to renew detention on something seized until charges are approved. I've been told this is the biggest time waster that police experience in British Columbia. Every 3 months. So if somebody's computer is seized with child sexual abuse and exploitation material, and that review takes 15 months, that officer will have gone to court 4 times, had to serve the application 4 times, written 4 affidavits. And in rural policing, you might be traveling 2 hours to deliver it. These are common sense issues. These are non-partisan issues. So the rhetorical question I have, and I'm not sure who's going to be speaking on behalf of the Liberals or the Bloc, but I invite them, Madam Speaker, to say this at the outset. Will they be supporting this bill? In fact, they can go one step further today. They can allow debate to collapse. What that means, Madam Speaker, is we would vote on this forthwith. I don't know why we would prolong the current law of intimate partner violence, or the lack thereof, another day. Why would we let the status quo exist another day? This House can resoundingly denounce the current state, where women are far too often intimate partners, period. Because there are men who experience intimate partner violence, although it is disproportionately women. This House can denounce it right here, right now. Allow debate to collapse. And we can get this to committee forthwith. So, whoever does stand up for the Liberals, Madam Speaker, I invite them to take the first 5 seconds of their question to say whether they will allow debate to collapse and whether they will be supporting this bill. As I said, Bailey McCourt's family is watching. Canadians are watching. When it comes to intimate partner violence, Madam Speaker, in 2023, 123,319 victims aged 12 years and older. Firearms present in over 1,000 cases. 2014 marked the lowest rates of IPV since comparable data became available. I wonder what happened in 2015. I'm trying to remember. Anyways, since then, from 2014 to 2022, police reported IPV rates increased 19% for women and girls and 21% for men and boys. In that period, intimate partner sexual assault increased 163%. Now, I actually introduced a bill last time, Bill C-299, that would raise sexual assault to life imprisonment maximum. I was actually heckled by 2 members of the Liberal Party when I did that. How do we stand in the way of this? How? How do we stand in the way of that when we have an increase of 163% of sexual assault against intimate partners? The people who are most likely to die at the hands of their partner. Intimate partner physical assault increased 14%. So I may sound like a broken record here, Madam Speaker, but my question is this. It feels like you could hear a pin drop in this place. Why are we waiting? Will the Liberals allow debate to collapse? Will the Liberals, if they're not prepared to do that, are they prepared to support the bill? Are they prepared to address this on a consent motion so that we can make this bill law as quickly as possible? Madam Speaker, most of my adult life has been spent in the justice system, and I can't tell you how many victims I have dealt with on this issue. There are people who live very good lives otherwise, that everything appears perfectly normal, yet behind closed doors, they are repeatedly victimized. This offense spans every socioeconomic group. Doesn't matter whether you're low income, working class, or rich. You are at risk for intimate partner violence. 55% of women who experience physical or sexual intimate partner violence feared a partner at some point. Being afraid of a partner can indicate intimate partner violence that is more coercive, more severe, and more likely to reflect a pattern of abusive behaviors. And in my home province of British Columbia, the Union of BC Municipalities, also known as UBCM convention, took place in Victoria from September 22nd to 26th of this year. The Union of BC Municipalities endorsed a motion for BC to declare gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and human trafficking an epidemic in the province and update its action plan to combat human trafficking. So we are expected to hear from the people on the ground in this House, Madam Speaker. We are expected to reflect that in the laws we pass. And often in the laws we pass, there are poison pills that are put in, wedge issues, things like that. There's no wedge here, Madam Speaker. There is simply a desire on my part and a desire for the people on this side of the House, I can only speak for my colleagues, to get this bill passed as soon as possible. The Union of BC Municipalities is asking, they're not asking specifically for this, but they're asking for action when they pass a resolution of this sort. Somebody who I've gotten to speak with, Angela McDougall, from the Battered Women's Support Services Program, attended that program organization attended the UBCM conference in Victoria to push forward for 5 actions. A municipal gender-based violence task force to stabilize frontline services, standardize a risk assessment. This bill actually has a risk assessment built into it, a mechanism by which the court can bring somebody before the court itself, to launch a province-wide prevention campaign and to appoint a gender-based violence lead. Madam Speaker, I know my time is almost done. I'm grateful to our Deputy Leader, the member for Thornhill, for seconding this important bill and speaking on this important bill. I reiterate, this is a bill that should be passed. It should be passed quickly. It should go to committee as quickly as possible. Victims are watching. Let's get Bailey's Law passed. Will the Liberals do that? Will they agree to let debate collapse so this can get to a vote and get to committee? Those are my questions. because I know we have to address this, and now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Waterloo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's always a pleasure to be in this House and to be able to represent the good people of the riding of Waterloo. And I'll tell you that I agree with the Honourable Member that we do need to represent the people on the ground. We do need to know that Canadians are watching. We do need to represent the very people who sent us here. And so constituents within the riding of Waterloo, we are diverse views. But there are several who are saying, how are the Conservatives coming to this moment when they voted against capacity funding for women-serving organizations who feel right now that the Conservatives want to see books balanced rather than supporting organizations who need that support? When Conservatives voted against pay equity, which gave those very individuals he's referring to the opportunity to exist and to be able to exceed. They voted against early learning and childcare. They voted against the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence. Constituents in the riding of Waterloo are saying, well, will Conservatives recognize that victims have the opportunity to exist and the federal government has a role to play? And if this budget supports women-serving organizations, will they stand with women or will they continue to play the partisan politics they're playing with this bill?
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson-Nickel.
I can't believe that the member just said partisan politics with this bill. I will look this member right in the eyes. There is absolutely nothing partisan about this bill. And if I could please continue, if the honourable member would give me a chance to continue to speak about this. There is nothing partisan about this bill. This bill is the most significant intervention on the law of intimate partner violence ever. And yet the Liberals want to stand up and accuse us of partisanship? Good grief, Madam Speaker. This is so wrong. I asked whether the Liberals would support this. Not one word out of that member's mouth about whether they'll support this. Not one word out of that member's mouth whether this debate would collapse. Shame on the Liberals for not answering those questions.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for Kamloops Thompson-Nicola for his speech this morning and for his leadership on these issues. I would like to say that the member for Rivière-du-Nord will be laying out the Bloc Québécois position shortly, and I also acknowledge the work done by my colleague for Shepherd on this issue. Given that there are various initiatives that have been put in place or suggested to fight intimate partner violence, including special tribunals, I would ask my colleague, how will Bill C-225 ensure that federal criminal law take into account the progress that's already been made in Quebec? Is there a possibility that there might be a doubling up of efforts that might hurt efforts in Quebec? So I'd like to know what my colleagues' thoughts are on that.
Member for Kamloops Thompson-Nicola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you, I say merci pour votre question.
Thank you for your question.
I appreciate the member's thoughtful intervention, Madam Speaker. I don't see this being a doubling up of efforts. The end of the day, calling an offence what it is, that is, assault of an intimate partner, is not the doubling up of efforts. Allowing the court more tools to bring somebody before the court in order to perform a risk assessment, that isn't the doubling up of effort. So I appreciate all that's been done. Obviously, I don't know every single thing and every single mechanism that's been done in his home province of Quebec, but I appreciate the words, and I look forward to working with the Bloc in hopes that they will support this bill as well. Thank you.
Questions et commentaires, questions and comments. As the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if the member could provide his comments in regards to what shelters, what sort of consultation was done prior to the member introducing the bill. Madam Speaker, all Canadians are concerned about the issue. The concern I have is this is just another American-style type legislation being proposed without having due consultations with Canadians, in particular women's shelters and other stakeholders. Can he provide to the House what consultations he's done?
Member for Kamloops Thompson-Nicola.
Well, I'll tell you that my 10 years as a Crown prosecutor was a substantial base to start with, Madam Speaker. I spoke with people from women's groups. I spoke with victims from intimate partner violence, police officers, countless people. You know, I am at a loss right now, Madam Speaker. This is quite possibly the most non-partisan bill that could have been authored. There is nothing partisan about this bill. And the member from Waterloo says, keep drinking it. Shame.
Order.
Well, then what did she say? Keep thinking it? The most non-partisan bill that could have been authored. And that member from Winnipeg, who did heckle when I introduced the bill on sexual assaults, they're saying this is American-style politics. Shame on every single one.
We have to resume debate. The Honourable Member for Waterloo on a point of order.
I just think it's important when it's a serious topic like this that we represent members accordingly. He said what I said, and then he said what I said again, and they don't match. So I would just ask the member to stay focused on the topic and have the debate, and sometimes tell.
That is more a point of debate, and we are going to resume debate with the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister. The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Nicola, on the
If the member wants to clarify the record, why doesn't she tell us what she said right here, right now?
Well, anything that was said without a mic open is not going to be open for debate. Order! Both members.